Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to English for Academic Communication with me, Maria Dewi Rosari from Jakarta International University. Welcome to week 4 or lecture 4. And in this lecture, we're having a new topic, which is panel discussions. Well, actually, the topic of today's lecture is the continuations of the material from the previous unit or previous lecture 3, which is about participating in small group setting. So it will be designed this way. Meeting 3 it will be about the mechanics of the language and also the strategies to take a part in a small group setting, 1. And then in lecture 4, it will be about the further applications of the mechanics of the language and also the strategies. And then later in lecture 5, we will see how to take a part in a small group settings too. So although it's still small group setting, but it will involve a different setting. And then in lecture 6, it will be the application activities that you can try to apply what you learned in the previous meeting or in the previous lecture. All right, so now let's find out what we are going to learn in this lecture 4, and let's find out the learning objectives. So as you can see here on the right side of your slide, I already wrote the learning objectives for lecture 4 or week 4, right? The first one is the introduction and review. So I will introduce you first with what this lecture is going to be or will be about. And then we're going to have a short review on what we learned in the previous lecture, because what we learned in the previous lecture are going to be applied in the activities that I provided in this lecture. And then in section 2, we are going to find out the challenges and hidden assumptions in participating in small group setting, right? So actually, this section is the same with the one you had in the previous lecture. But I'm mistaken, is in meeting 2. But for now, we are going to find out any possible challenges and any hidden assumptions that we may encounter when participating in small group setting 1, right? And this is very important so that we can be more aware of the occurrence of any challenges and any unseen assumptions in a small group settings. And then it is hoped that by acknowledging it and by being more aware of it, we will be more able and more capable to anticipate that, and it is hoped that it will result in a better performance or better participation in small group setting. And last but not least, it's the application activities. Well, I know that the title of lecture 4, it's about panel discussions, right? But the panel discussion will not be the one and only application activity that we are going to have today. Instead, I provide some other activities, and those activities before the panel discussions are also important because those 2 activities, which are summarizing and sharing opinions and questions and more questions, are very important to be highlighted, because those 2 will prepare you for the panel discussions. So we are not going straight to the panel discussions, but we're trying to build up our knowledge and ability for all the skills and all the things that we need to know to participate in a panel discussion. All right, so that's the big picture of what we are going to have in this lecture 4. And without further ado, let's start with the first section, which is the introduction and review. So lecture 3 and 4, like I said previously, center on participation in small group setting, with lecture 3 focusing on building the mechanics and strategic competence involving how to ask questions, right? But in this lecture 4, we focus more on the application activities of lecture 3, activities. So it's not only the theory, right? Just the list of expressions, but we know how to apply it. All right. I hope that you still remember all the mechanisms of the language that we learned in the previous lecture. Okay. Um, Now, can you name some situations, some settings in which you can apply the mechanism of language learned in lecture 3? Of course, we're talking about small group setting. At least, can you name one situation in which I can apply this expression or that expression? But do you still remember all those expressions and the functions? Well, if not, let's just review it for a while. That's why I intentionally included this section before we go to the main menu of today. Okay, so from all the all the expressions that we learned in lecture 3, I selected some of them, right? And I want you to match the expressions to the function. There they are. So there are 10, okay? And all those 10 expressions can be grouped into 4 classification based on their purposes, right? First one is for asking for repetition. Number 2 is seeking clarification or elaboration. Number 3 is paraphrasing ideas to confirm understanding. And the last one is clarifying your comment by putting it in other words. So all those 4 purposes are the ones we learned in lecture 3. And actually, all those expressions are the ones taken from lecture 3. So now please pause this video, right? And stay on slide 4 and don't go to slide 5 yet. Please take 2-3 minutes, right, to match the expressions on the left with their purpose on the right. I will help you by giving you some clues, okay? And I will read the expressions one by one to you. But number 1, would you mind saying or would you mind repeating that again? Well, that's actually quite obvious, right? And then number 2, could you explain your second point in more detail? Number 3, based on my understanding of the points that you just made, am I correct in assuming that? And then number 4, number 5, in other words. Number 6, sorry, I didn't quite catch what you said. Number 7, if I have understood you correctly, your point is that, and then paraphrasing the idea. Oh, that's very obvious, right? And then number 8, could you provide an example of blah, blah, blah? Number 9, sorry, the shortest one. And number 10, the last one. My point is that. All right, so you will see the answer key or the right answers on the next slide. So before you finish this short exercise, do not go to the next slide or do not continue this video. All right, but whenever you're ready, whenever you're finished, let's go to the next slide to reveal the right answers. Number 1, would you mind saying or repeating that again? That's of course repetition, right? Repeating, repetition. Number 2, could you explain your second point in more detail? That's seeking clarification or elaboration. Number 3, based on my understanding of the points that you just made, am I correct in assuming that? That's paraphrasing ideas to confirm understanding. Number 4, number 5, in other words. So those 2 numbers belong to clarifying your comment by putting it in other words. Number 6, sorry, I didn't quite catch what you said, it's for asking for repetitions because we didn't understand or catch the message. So we ask our speaking partner to repeat what they just said. And then number seven, if I have understood you correctly, your point is that that's a very clear answer, right? The clues is really a few there. That's for paraphrasing ideas to confirm understanding. And number eight, could you provide an example of seeking clarification or elaboration? Sorry, of course, for repetition. And the last one is for clarifying your comment by putting it in other words. So, how many correct answers did you get? Is there any expressions that is still confusing to you? I hope not. Right? If you think that you are still in doubt about your answer, so you can review the materials and also the video of lecture 3 that I made for you. Okay, so that's the short review of what we had in lecture 3, right? And before we go to the real applications of all the mechanics of the language and also strategies in taking part in small group setting, let's go to section 2, which is about facing challenges and exploring hidden assumptions. Right. So here we are. So whenever you see this section in every lecture, it means that you will be provided with a list of questions related to the communication setting being discussed. And this is actually diagnostic test. It's like when we are going to a doctor and you know, we tell the doctor that we have issues, but we cannot really describe it in such a way that the expert knows what the real problem is. So the doctor will conduct diagnostic tests, right, to identify and to diagnose the real problems. So this section is just the same thing, right? So this section is aimed to help you to analyze, to diagnose what your real problem is in participating in small group setting. By answering these questions, you will be, guided to be more aware of any possible challenges that you may encounter in a small group setting participation. All right. Now let's see these questions. The instruction for this section will be like this. Explore these questions on your own if you use this book for self-study. In a classroom, share your thoughts about these questions with a speaking partner and be prepared to share your discussion with the class. So this material can be used for two purposes. First, for self-study, and two, for classroom instruction, meaning that you can use this material for, as a student for self-study, but you can also use this for, your teaching material in a classroom. Let's see the questions. For number one, it will be quite long, okay, and I will help you to understand those questions. Number one, if you're using this book or this material in an academic conversation course, you probably have been asked to introduce yourself to your group, right? We already discussed this previously about how to introduce ourselves in a group. It can be a new group whose members are not known or new to you, right? If not, you probably have had opportunities to introduce yourself at one of your courses or seminars. The questions are, how did you do that? Did you face any challenges? What challenges did you encounter that other members of your group also faced? So maybe the problem that you face is that it's very hard for me to, to construct a sequence of speech for my introduction. I am aware of that, and I am aware that it's not only my problem, but also the problem of other members. Because I see when they were introducing themselves, they also got confused on what to say first and what to say later, like that. And then if you haven't yet had an opportunity to introduce yourself in a group situation, what sorts of challenges would you anticipate having? So if you have never been in a in a group communication in which you were asked to introduce yourself. So you may imagine yourself being in one and imagine what kind of challenges that would probably be your issue, right? And then could you think of any preventive solution that you may take? You may answer this question on a piece of paper or using notes in your phone like that, or you can take notes in everywhere. It's everywhere doable. And then number two, do you think questioning is important in academic discussions? Why or why not? In an academic discussion, usually we have like a material presentation like that, right? So there is someone who will present what's that material, or maybe some people present their materials, and after that there will be Q&A session in which we can discuss further the topic, right? So do you think that questioning or asking question is important? Why or why not? The example is asking question is very important because we can clarify our understanding, or we can contribute to the discussion, right? So by asking question, I hope you still remember in the previous lecture we discussed that asking question is not only beneficial for us, the questioner, but also for other members of the discussion. Maybe they have the same questions, but they just, are not confident enough to pose the question, right? So that's the first two questions. The next one, what do you consider the primary purposes of asking questions? What is your perception of a good question? Together, identify some phrases that are used in English to pose various types or levels of questions. Well, you can use this as a review of what we learned in lecture 3, right? So what makes a good question? Is any question good, or is there any certain criteria that make a question good or better than other questions? And if you still remember what we discussed in lecture 3, what phrases can we use to pose questions having different purposes? So questions are not just questions. They have different types. They have different purposes. And for different purpose and different type, we have different phrases we use. And then number 4, from your experience, what types of questions have you noticed in group or seminar discussions? What types have you found to be the most common? But if you haven't had any chance to attend one seminar discussion or group discussion, you may imagine like a setting of group discussion in an academic setting, of course, what can probably be the common type of questions. If you cannot imagine one, you can watch a video on YouTube about seminar discussion or group discussions and try to see and observe what's happening there, right? Try to find the questions that are the most frequently asked or the most frequently posed, right? And then answer this question. Next question is, what are some of your thoughts arising from your observations of how native speakers of English pose questions as compared with non-native speakers? Well, these questions can be more about the culture as well, especially if you compare Western culture and Eastern culture, or you can compare how native speakers ask questions and you yourself ask questions if you're not native speakers. That, and then the next question, what are some dimensions of cultural differences that might influence or obstruct how participants with different cultural backgrounds pose questions in small group settings? Well, in answering this question, you can refer to the material in lecture 1, right? When you're discussing some factors that may influence, some cultural factors that may influence how we participate in a communication setting, right? That will help you a lot in answering this question number 6. And the last question for number 7 is, how do you feel about your ability to pose questions in academic discussions? You may rate it like from 1 to 10, in a range of 1 to 10, right? And what is or what are one or some of the most challenging aspects of asking questions? Is it about being the first person to ask? Is it about constructing your sentence? Or is it about being confident, right? There are so many things, and which one is the most challenging aspect for you? Together, brainstorm some strategies that will help you overcome such challenges. So, what are the challenges? And what do you think can be the strategies to overcome those challenges? So, it's like a self reflection question, right? So, you think of your challenges, you acknowledge that, and you think of any possible way to overcome that or to prevent that to happen again in the near future. Okay, everyone. So, that's was are the challenges and exploring hidden assumptions in section 2. All right, I hope that you can answer all those questions in detail before we go to the main activity or the main menu of this lecture 4. And after this, we are entering the section 3, which is about the application activities. All right, so now we are now in the third section. Well, this is the last section, but this last section will be quite long because it covers 3 application activities. And like I said previously, there will be more than one application activity in this section. Each activity aims to build your communication skill before entering the panel discussions activity or before entering the big menu, the big agenda, the biggest agenda for this application activity. So these 2 subsections in section 3 will highlight the skills of summarizing and sharing opinions, and also about asking questions that are needed in taking a part in a panel discussion. And we will start with this, summarizing and sharing opinions. So as the name suggests, it will cover how to summarize something and then to share opinions like that. And this activity is designed to promote learners' ability to summarize information, share the summaries verbally, paraphrase summaries they have heard, and elicit and express opinions in small group settings. So there are a lot of purposes of this section. First, summarize. So when someone is presenting something in a group discussion, we should be able to summarize the key point or the key informations of it. Because usually a material presented in a group discussion will be very long and will be very a lot, and we need to know how to summarize that. And after that, we will practice to how to share the summaries verbally. Okay, after we summarize it, how to present it verbally. And next one, paraphrase summaries they have heard. So from the summaries that we have made, we need to paraphrase that or rewrite it in other words or put it in other words. And finally, how can we elicit and express opinions in a small group setting? We will do this activity one step by one step, and I will guide you along the way. So I will recommend you taking a book or any piece of paper to take notes on everything that you do. Okay, let's start from step 1. It's about summarizing. Read an assigned article and underline 5 sentences that you think are the most important. Then try combining them into 2 or 3 sentences in your own words. After that, summarize the article. This exercise is applicable for both self-study and classroom instruction. And I already chose an article for you, and I will give you examples on how to select the 5 sentences and how to combine them into a summary, right? And then step 2 that we are going to do is sharing. In here, take turns presenting a very brief summary of the article that each person has chosen. The other person will paraphrase on the basis of the summary given by the other student. So after we have had our summary of the article, we need to present it to someone else. If you use this material for a self-study, you may ask for help from your friend to listen to your summary and provide feedback and ask them to paraphrase your summary. Or you can also ask your friend to summarize the article and you try to paraphrase the summary, right? And the third one is sharing opinions. In this step, you need to use the expressions learned in the previous lecture to, one, check everyone's understandings of one another's summaries if they are different. Two, practice eliciting opinions about the main issues of the article. And the last one is discuss the article. I'm sorry, discuss the issues. So now let's see how we can conduct this step one by one, all right? And please follow the examples that I provide. So the article that I chose for you is entitled, What's the Point of School Uniform? Taken from this our website. You can head to the website too to see the full article because I only selected some paragraphs, so it won't be very long. I will get you to read the article. If you need some time to read it again, you may pause this video and continue playing it again later. Okay, so it's about the point of school uniform. Wearing a uniform is a badge of pride, creates an identity for a school, and is an important part of being a school student. Uniforms show that you are part of an organization. Wearing it says we are all in this together. Jason Wing, head teacher at the Neil Wade Academy in Cambridgeshire, says, also, if you wear your uniform with pride, it means you are halfway there to being respectful, buying into what the organization is all about. A school uniform teaches students to dress smartly and take pride in their appearance. Some people believe that a school uniform can improve learning by reducing distraction, sharpening focus on schoolwork, and making the classroom a more serious environment, allowing students to perform better academically. Perhaps most importantly, a uniform means students don't have to worry about peer pressure when it comes to the clothes. When everyone is dressed the same, worrying about what you look like isn't so important. There isn't a competition about being dressed in the latest trend, which would put a great deal of financial pressure on students and parents. Potential bullies have one less target for their insults. It's hard to make fun of what someone is wearing when you're dressed exactly the same. In America, where a majority of schools do not have a uniform, roughly 160,000 children miss school every day due to fear of attack or intimidation by other students. This might not be directly linked to what they are wearing, but having a uniform can be a safety net for many students who might otherwise suffer from bullying. A strict uniform gives the impression that rules are strict too, perhaps helping maintain a sense of order at school. Although wearing a school uniform is less expensive than buying a whole wardrobe of outfits, uniform can still be pricey. Recently, the Liberal Democrats held a conference about the cost of school uniforms across England. The Education Minister, David Laws, is to issue new guidance to end the practice of using a single uniform supplier, enabling parents to shop around for uniform. For example, if schools decide to change the uniform, for example, with a new emblem or color, changes should be restricted to one or two items, preferably with Suwon logos. Changing from a one supplier system could help families with the cost of school uniform. Massive Balance, a year 8 student says, my uniform might not be what I would wear in my own time, but it gives me a sense of belonging, takes away the pressure of what to wear, and deters the bullies. School uniform isn't fashionable, but that's exactly why I think it should be here to stay. All right, so that's the article entitled, What's the Point of School Uniform? If you think you need to read that again, you may do it, right? Or you may have other friends to read it again for you. So you may assume that this article or this information is presented verbally to you, and you need to, take notes on the important points or highlight 5 sentences that can help you summarize the main information of the article. So after reading this, you need to summarize it by first underlining 5 sentences. And the 5 sentences that I underlined are: number 1, wearing a uniform is a badge of pride, creates an identity for a school, and is an important part of being a school student. Sentence number 2, some people believe that a school uniform can improve learning by reducing distraction, sharpening focus on schoolwork, and making the classroom a more serious environment. Sentence number 3 that I chose is, perhaps most importantly, a uniform means students don't have to worry about peer pressure when it comes to their clothes. Number 4, although wearing a school uniform is less expensive than buying a whole wardrobe of outfits, uniform can still be pricey. And the last sentence that I chose from the article is, the Education Minister David Laws is to issue new guidance to end the practice of using a single uniform supplier. And then I combine the sentences, those 5 sentences, into 2 or 3 sentences and summarize the article in your own word, in my own words. And from those 5 sentences, I created the summary. Wearing a uniform symbolizes students' pride of their school and is deemed able to enhance learning process as it removes distraction, improves one's focus on schoolwork, and prevent the occurrence of peer pressure when it comes to one's clothes. However, wearing a school uniform can cost parents a lot. The Education Minister, therefore, issues a rule to remove the practice of involving a single supplier of uniform so parents can shop around for their children's uniform. So can you see, when you have selected 5 sentences, or if the article is longer, you may add 1 or 2 more sentences. And from the sentences that you have selected, you can create the summary more easily because you have selected the key points of the article, and then the next step will be just about combining them into one paragraph containing 2, 3, 4, or 5 sentences. So that's step 1 about summarizing. Now I want you to practice it. I want you to select your own 5 sentences from the assigned article about the school uniform. Just 5 sentences. You may choose the same sentences with mine, or you may highlight different points from the article. Write it down on the PowerPoint slide or in your book, or you can take notes in your phone, so wherever possible. Pause this video if you need more time to do that. Okay, and after you have selected the 5 sentences, combine the sentences to create your own summary of the article. Well, I know that it's mentioned to be 2 or 3 sentences, but I guess 1 more sentence for the summary will also do. Okay, so please stay on slide 13 to complete your exercise. Okay, please do not skip this process because what you will do on this slide will be used for the next step. But whenever you're finished, please continue this video and go to slide 14. And step 2 is sharing. Take turn in presenting the summary. It will be actually better if you do this activity at least with 1 more friend, so that you can take turn in presenting the summary. And paraphrase the summary you just heard from your friend. So say you ask your friend to present his or her summary first, and then you paraphrase their summary, right? And then you take turn. You present your summary and your friend will paraphrase it for you. Okay. So assume that I just present my summary to one of my friends, okay? And here is the paraphrase of the summary that I made. This is just an example. You want to use my summary as your exercise, that will be great too. So please repeat when I am delivering the summary of my article, right? And then while you are listening, take notes and then try to paraphrase my summary. This is one of the examples of the paraphrasing of the summary. Wearing a uniform represents students' pride in their school and is said to improve learning as it eliminates distractions, enhances one's focus on tasks, and avoids peer pressure related to what to wear to schools. Wearing a school uniform, on the other hand, can be very expensive for parents. As a result, the Education Ministry issues a law prohibiting the use of a single uniform provider, allowing parents to buy uniform for their children from various stores. Now, how about you? Can you make or can you rewrite my summary in your own words? You can use this. You can use my summary for practicing this step too. So the skill of paraphrasing, first summarizing and then paraphrasing the information that you just heard, are two of so many skills that we need when we take part in a panel discussions, right? So before we enter the real panel discussion, practice these skills. Whenever you are finished with your paraphrasing of my summary, let's go to the next step. The next step is sharing opinions. Check everyone's understandings of one's another's summary if they are different. So say you are working with one friend, okay, and she or he already presented their summary to you. So you can check his or her understanding, just in case you find something different in the summary. So the way that you can checking their understanding is by using the phrases that we discussed in lecture 3. This is just one of the examples. You may use the same phrase, or you can use other phrases that are applicable in here. And I already insert the context here, right? So this can be one question that I asked to my friend that just paraphrased my summary. I'm sorry, could you repeat what you said about what the Minister of Education issued regarding the uniform rule? Just in case what you wrote about what the Minister of Education issued and what your friend wrote are different. Next one, practice eliciting opinions about the main issues of the article. Now, can you guess the phrase or the expressions that we can use for this purpose? You may select one phrase from the list of expressions that we discussed in the previous meeting. The example is this one. Sorry, but I'm not quite clear on the point you made about uniform that can enhance one's learning focus. Based on my understanding of the points that you just made, am I correct in assuming that some schools intentionally hire one single uniform supplier for their needs of school uniform? And you may add more and more questions if you think your friend wrote different informations or highlighted different things than what you did for your summary. And after asking these questions, we must expect that our interlocutors will provide responses, right? Our friends will give answers and then discuss the issues. And along the discussion, if you think, you need a follow-up questions, just use other phrases. You may prepare a list of phrases from the previous lecture to guide you, like what should I use, what phrase should I use, what expression should I use if I need to, for example, clarifying, or when I asking for repetition, or many other purposes. So this is the end about the activity of summarizing and sharing opinions, right? And the next one, we're entering the second subsection of section 3, which is about questions, and more questions. So in this subsection 1 of section 3, we are talking about summarizing and sharing opinions in a group discussion. And then the next one is about asking or posing questions, right? But if you think you need more time to understand the materials or to complete the exercise, please do so. Feel free to do so. Pause this video for a while and stay on the slide that you think you need more time, and then you may continue it again later. But if you're ready now, let's go to the next subsection about application activities, in which we are going to talk about questions, and more questions. Okay, so like I said previously, this will be about asking questions, how to pose questions, especially if we need to pose questions with different purposes or different types. And to help us understand how to pose questions in a group discussion, I provide you with Aristotle's topics. The following article, titled Practicing Speaking for Academic Purposes Using Aristotle's Topic, was published in Communication Teacher. The first part of the article provides background material to help instructors introduce the use of Aristotle's topics as a speaking strategy that will enable learners to develop academic speaking skills applicable to individual presentations, seminars, and group discussions. This is followed by a detailed description of the activity that puts the strategy into action. So I will present you what Aristotle's topics are, how to use them, and later how to apply that in communication activity. Now, practicing speaking for academic purposes using Aristotle's topic. The objective is to expand advanced second language learners' speaking repertoire and promote communicative competence. And the course is Advanced Speaking for Academic Purposes. Yes, like I said in the very beginning of this course is actually aimed for those who are already advanced, because it takes your speaking and English abilities into the next level. All right, let's start about Aristotle's topic. Many advanced second language learners have difficulty speaking in academic settings and express a strong desire to be part of the dialogue. These observations has been supported by several studies, which have shown that participating in seminars and expressing themselves in speech are among the top challenges that second language graduate and undergraduate students learners face in academic setting. Please see Jordan in 1997. Yes, so even speaking activity in a non-formal setting is already a challenging issue, right, for a second language learners, let alone participating in an academic setting, right? It takes a very different level of skills in English. Although you think that you are very fluent in speaking English, but when it comes to speaking in an academic setting, it will still cause you, fear and doubts too, because we have a different sets of expressions, we have different sets of, knowledge to use to be able to participate in an academic communication setting. Faculty members also have noted that second language learners need to improve their oral communication skills in class discussions and presentations. Many learners still lack the necessary experience or confidence. So not only experience, not only skills, but also confidence to speak in various academic settings, and find it difficult to cope with the pressing need to formulate a contribution quickly. So when, for example, the leader of the discussion asks you to introduce yourself or to propose a question, it can be very challenging to give, a spontaneous response or spontaneous contribution to the discussion, right? And it is also difficult to, to feel certain about our contribution. Is it enough, or is it good enough? Do I look, knowledgeable enough? Sort of things. These challenges present a major stumbling block to their taking part in discourse communities. The teaching activity presented here introduces the use of Aristotle's topics as a speaking strategy that can help advanced second language learners like you to develop confidence in their abilities to make individual presentations and or to make dialogical contributions to group discussions, seminar, or academic debates. So actually, the Aristotle topics here is not only beneficial for group discussion, but you can also use it for, seminars or even debates in academic setting. Some notes on Aristotle's topics. Let's find out. During the 4th century before Christ, Aristotle developed the topics to help his students discover what could be used to develop a subject. Since then, Aristotle's topic been borrowed and put to great use in various disciplines and in teaching of academic writing. So it's previously used for academic writing, but now as the time goes by, it's used in various settings of academic communication. So by using Aristotle's topics, we will have more guidance in how to develop a subject or a topic in a group discussion. The topics of the Aristotle in Greek, topoi, or in Latin, I don't know how to read that. Is it loci? Words that means places, are conceived as places where ideas can be assigned within categories or classifications or under headings. This process can help speakers and writers invest ideas and group relevant material to develop a subject. Aristotle distinguished between common topics, which are general and can be used for any science, and special topics, which can be applied to either a particular science or a particular type of oratory. So the list of the topics of Aristotle can be divided into two: common topics, which are applicable to any fields, any topics, any issues. So be it you're from education background or law background or any other study programs, you may use that. But for special topics, they are only applicable for certain or particular type of science. Table 1 that I will show you on the next slide lists 5 common topics, which are definition, comparison, relationship, circumstance, and testimony, and 2 special topics, judicial and deliberative. These are accompanied by some questions to help students create situational examples that might enhance their thinking or research. For the original discussion on the topics, refer to Aristotle's Rhetoric in 1954, and for the detailed description and discussion of each topic, see Corbett and Connors 1999. Now let's see what Aristotle topics are. And let's start from the common topics first. So take a look in here. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 topics, common topics that we can use to develop a subject in a group discussion or seminar or presentations. They are definition. I will just read some examples for that. So when you are you're planning to, seeking for further elaborations of the definition of certain terminology or certain issue, you may ask, how does the dictionary define X? Or what is the meaning of X misunderstood? And many other questions listed there. They are talking about definition. If you want to discuss further about comparison, you may ask, how significant are those similarities and or differences? If you want to ask about relationship between two things or two, two issues being discussed, you may choose whether it is a cause and effect relationship or contrarious relationship or other types. The examples of the questions that you can use to ask about relationship are: what is the opposite of X? What comes before X? What comes after X? Such asking about relationship. If it is about circumstance, you can ask how feasible or how possible is X? What can or cannot happen? And many other questions that can be used for asking about circumstance. And the last one is testimony or evidence. For example, you want to, ask the other members of the discussion about the authority, the testimonial, any statistic, or simply any proof related to the issue, especially when the members of the discussions are presenting, something debatable or something that needs further analysis. The examples of the questions are: what authorities can you cite? And what previous incident of X can you cite? So you can read through all the expression listed here. Make sure that you use the question for the right purpose. This question, for example, for definition, that question for comparison, and so forth and so forth. And the next one is about the list of topics for Aristotle topics, but they are special topics, which are judicial and deliberative. So for these questions or these topics, we cannot use it in any science, but it's more technical, more contextual, right? But the previous list of topics, this one, we can use it in any sciences, law, maybe biology, geography, or many other topics of the discussion. They are applicable, but not for these two. Next one, still about questions, question, and questions. Now, using the same article assigned to you in the previous section, choose some topics from the Aristotle's topics and pose questions regarding the issue. The examples, let's take a look at my examples, and later I want you to make your own. So, for example, I want to pose questions that ask about definition, about comparison, about relationships, about circumstance, and about testimony or evidence. So, before you, decide about what questions to ask, you may ask yourself first, like, what type of questions, what type of topics that I need to use in the discussion. Okay, I will ask them about definition, I will ask them about comparison, relationship of this and that, and other things. After selecting those topics that you can see from the Aristotle list of topics, construct the questions using the guidelines from the Aristotle topics. Well, the list of the Aristotle topics is long enough, right? So you may bring that, you have a print out of that, and when you are taking a part in a group discussion, you may refer to that. You may take a look at that list, and that's actually okay, as long as you can still maintain the flow of your speech and maintain the flow of the discussion. I will present you the examples using the Aristotle's topics, and we are still talking about the point of school uniform, the article that we read previously. About definition, how does the dictionary define sense of belonging? You still remember, right? The article discusses about sense of belonging of the school when they are wearing uniform. Number 2, about comparison. How significant is students' performance at schools when they are required to wear uniforms compared to when they are free to use anything to school? Number 3, relationships. What causes schools use only one single supplier for their school uniform need? Number 4, circumstance. How feasible or how possible is applying the rule of no one single uniform supplier from the Ministry of Education? And the last one, testimony or evidence. What are some documented facts in statistics about how uniform can enhance one's focus on school tasks? Well, of course, with the content of the question, you may use different phrases from the Aristotle topics, right? But I chose those 5. Okay, so it doesn't mean that only those 5 can be used for asking questions about that topic of school uniform. You may use other phrases, and you may pose questions about other issues listed in the article. Now, make your own questions using the cues from the Aristotle's topic. First, you can select 5 topics first. So this is just examples, right? From out of those 5, I wrote down comparison, relationship, and circumstance. Although actually you can choose any 5 topics. Just choose your own topics. You may also change those 3 topics that I already chose for you, right? And after that, please write down the question. Develop a questions using the phrases listed in the Aristotle topics. And don't forget to still use the article about the school uniform that I showed to you in the previous slides. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you have finished making the questions using Aristotle's topic, I want you to do this activity, which is about self-reflection activity. So I have 4 questions for you to answer to reflect on what you have done so far, especially about making questions or posing questions using the guidelines of Aristotle topics. So here are the questions. What challenges did you encounter when you were completing this activity? What did you learn about the topics or issue from the discussion? What speaking strategies did you employ to help you deliver your ideas? Which strategies were useful for you and which were not? What worked and what did not work in terms of using the topics to develop your talk? So you can answer those questions, using what you have done in section 3.1 and also 3.2 about the Aristotle topics. So please reflect on what you have felt and then what you have done so that you can better aware and analyze your skills, your mastery, and also what you think you need to do for the next application activities. And if you're using this material for a classroom instruction, I provided some notes for you as instructor. Please take a look at this one. Only use this step if you are using this material for classroom instruction. This activity can be used as a confidence building non-graded activity during early stage of an oral communication or oral presentation course as a graded activity where both process and product are assessed. The grading criteria for this activity will vary depending on the teaching and learning objectives and the criteria that course instructors develop. Having been adapted by instructors in various disciplines over many years, Aristotle's topics have retained their original heuristic value, inviting students to more deeply consider issues using a communicative pedagogy. If you're using this as self-study, you may skip this slide. Aristotle's topics being useful mediating tool that helps learners tap into their existing knowledge and identity what can be said or what kinds of information can be used to talk about or discuss a subject. So when you think that your students need more guidance or more prompts to be able to ask questions in a group discussion, you may provide the handout of Aristotle topic. The various topics serve as prompts for helping learners discover how much they already know about a given issue based on their experience, education, reading, and reflection. Furthermore, when learners have just a few bits and pieces of scrambled ideas, or when more thorough research of an issue is required for a longer presentation in your class, the topics provide structures for exploring generating and recreating new ideas and thoughts. With practice, learners will be able to run quickly through the topics mentally to identify points that could be made about the subject or issue at hand. They also can use them to explore, broaden, and challenge their original thinking and enhance their ability and confidence to present shorter comments or longer presentations on any subject. Practice various speaking activities utilizing the topics further promotes language learning and development. So the Aristotle topic is not only applicable for a small group setting or small group discussion, you can even use it for any other activities in your classroom. Okay? And it's very beneficial to have your students construct their ideas and their thoughts. They may have had some things in their head, but they need more guidance on how to pose questions and how to contribute to the discussion or presentations in the class. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of section 3.2. For the next one, it's the last application activity, which is panel discussions, right? And this is the main agenda or the main thing about lecture 4. But it's very impossible to jump straight to the panel discussions without, having the exercise or the activities in the previous slides that we have had so far about summarizing, sharing opinions, and also asking questions, because all those skills are needed for panel discussion, right? Whenever you're ready to do the panel discussion, let's start and let's go to slide 27. For the panel discussion, I provide you with instructions. Please read the instruction carefully. Please read the article on the next slide, and there will be different instructions for those using this material as a self-study and the ones using it for classroom instruction. If you are using this material for self-study, here is the instruction. Using this activity for your self-study means you need to play different roles: the experts, the questioners, and the observers. If you are using this for classroom instruction, divide the class into 3 groups. One group will represent the experts, one will be the questioners, and the third will be the observers. So don't worry that everything that using this material for self-study will not enable you to do panel discussion. No, you can play those roles. Although it may sound complicated and complex for you because you have to play those 3 roles, but it means that you are practicing more. You're practicing a lot more than those who are using this activity in the class, right? So don't be discouraged. There will be instruction and also examples to guide you to learn how to be the experts, to learn how to be the questioners, and also to be the observers. But for the the next slide, I will start from the guidelines on how to use panel discussion for classroom instruction. And after that, I will provide the same guideline for the self-study. They will all start with preparation period for more or less 20 minutes. For expert group, ask them to read the article and anticipate questions that the questioner group might raise. Group members might consider designating different members to be responsible for responding to certain aspects of the article. So let's say the article has several subsections, for examples, methodology, findings, interpretation, recommendation, and conclusion, and so forth and so forth. So you can ask the expert group to assign a certain subsection of the article to a certain member, so that the group can ensure that there is a balance in participation and contributions among members, so that everyone in the expert group is responsible for something, and everyone has a responsibility, has a task to do. For questionnaire group, the first step is for individuals to generate a few questions about the article, as the name suggests, questionnaire. Then gather as a group to select a list of questions to pose the expert group. Include some questions that challenge the expert group's position. If such questions are appropriate to the situation, But if you think that it's not needed, that's okay. You can eliminate this part. Make sure that there are questions from different levels and various focus, and revise them to enhance the clarity and focus if necessary. Last one for observer group. Divide the group into two subgroups. One will observe the expert group members' interactions during the group activity, and the other will observe the questionnaire group members' interactions. Group members will take notes about what they have observed. Please make sure that the observer group be observant of the nature of your group's contributions by reflecting on such questions as, was there a balanced interaction among the participants? What sort of questions were posed? What types of questions were the most common? Did certain types of comments often get made? Were participants' comments challenging each other in a constructive way or in a problematic way even? So those are the job splitting for every group in your classroom. And the article that I chose for this panel discussion is this one. Should kids and twins have cell phones? It's taken from that website. You may also head to the website to find out the full article because I already summarized and shortened the article. Well, take your time to read the articles in these 2 slides. I will not read the article for you. You may pause this video and stay on slide 29 and 30. Yes, to read the articles carefully and slowly. Just take your time to complete that. Okay, whenever you're ready, you may continue playing this video and also find out what to do next. So here are the guidelines for those 3 groups, what to do. For the expert group, ask your expert group in your classroom to write down any anticipations of questions, to predict what the questionnaire group may ask. At least 5 things to anticipate. And then for questionnaire group, ask them to make questions about the article and let them know that they need to ask these questions to the expert group. For observer group, please show this list of questions that will be their guideline in how and what to observe from the expert group and questionnaire groups. And you may encourage them to add more things to observe from the other 2 groups. The next period is question period for about 20 minutes. So start the question period much like a press conference that you would see on television. The observer group will continue to observe participants' verbal and nonverbal language and to make notes of the exchanges and interactions in the sessions as a whole. The 2 observer subgroups will come together to share their observations and notes and be prepared to report their findings back to the class. Members of the expert and questionnaire groups are also invited to respond or share their thoughts and personal reflections. So that's the question period, 20 minutes, and the last one is for preparation periods for 20 minutes for self-study. So the previous slide will be the end of the procedure to conduct panel discussion for a classroom instruction. And now let's move to the instruction for panel discussion for those who are using this material for a self-study. When doing this activity as a self-study, you will need to play all the roles, right? You will be the expert, the questioner, and the observer too. Well, you may not be able to play the role of observer because it won't be possible to have a group discussion in a self-study, right? But try to predict instead. Try to predict what things you need to observe from how the discussion is running and how the members are taking part in it. So you may visualize it or predict it. So here are the same guidelines When you are acting as expert group, what do you think need to be anticipated? What questions to anticipate from the questionnaire group? List at least 5 things to anticipate. And then move to questionnaire group. When you are playing a role as a questionnaire group, what kind of questions about the article you want to propose to the expert group? List down at least 5 questions. And then you need to move to the next role, which is as an observer group, right? Well, I already provided 5 things that you can use to observe from the other 2 groups, the expert and the questioner. But I want you to also list down other things that we need to observe from the expert and the questioner group that haven't been listed in those questions. This one. Okay. Write it down in here. Well, unfortunately, if you're using this for a self-study, you may not be able to really, play the panel discussion. But at least you have practiced on how to be expert group, how to be questioner group, and how to be an observer, right? So you experience those 3 roles that are very important in a panel discussion. So when later you are really taking a part in a panel discussion, you know what to do, regardless of the role assigned to you, right? Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of our lecture 4 about panel discussion, which is the application activity of the material we discussed in lecture 3 about participating in small group setting 1. For the next 2 lectures, we are going to learn about how to take part in small group settings 2 with different communication setting, with different mechanics of languages, different strategies, and many other things. If you want to read more about the material and about the articles that we use in today's lecture, please refer to these references. The main reference of lecture 4 is taken from that book, and for the additional reference and also the articles are listed in here. So feel free to replay this video, and also to read more about our material today in those references. All right, so it's a wrap. That's all about our lecture 4. I hope that the material in lecture 4 is beneficial for you, for your improvement in academic communication in English. And I'll see you in the next lecture. I'm Maria Dewi Rosari. I'll see you soon.